And we're live. What's up, Kingdom of Rock? This is Matt Gibson. I'm here today with my co-host, the awesome Michael Molenda, with his trusty. Actually, you have two guitars there today. What's that red one?
This is the Callings 290. In
that's pretty.
red, of course.
That's beautiful. And today we have a kind of a unique guest for the Kingdom of Rock podcast. I don't think we've had one actor at one point, but I don't think we've had a director on the show, and definitely not of anyone with the experience of our guest today, Mr. Donny Most. Most of you guys have heard of Don from back in the days of the happier days, right? And where simpler. Yeah, he was definitely a household name. Just like, it's so weird back then when the TV, there was 3 channels and you're right on TV. It's like every single person knows you, and
yeah, very different then.
Yeah, now there's like 8 billion channels, right?
Right. But 8 million billion people still know Don.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. So Don, I've been kind of romancing him on LinkedIn. We've been having a conversation for about 2 years now, and we're going to have him on the show at one point. And the LA fires happened, twice actually. I was here for twice.
Us twice.
Interrupted us twice. One time I was here for the NAMM show, and they had the fires then. And you told me you're in your backyard watching your lawn burn.
Oh, well, it was very close. It was, it was really close. We had to evacuate and all. Oh my God, yeah. But I forgot there was a second one. That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. It's just like it's like LA. I mean, the world right now. Well, I mean, geez, everyone's getting hammered now.
We had 2 fires up north too, so it didn't even, neither Northern California didn't escape it.
Yeah.
Oh, right, absolutely. I know it's scary times. It's like I'm feeling like I want to go back and listen to the Nostradamus thing. Remember all of his predictions of it? It almost seems like some of that's happening.
Yeah, like the plagues.
Yeah, for all the natural disasters and this and that, and we
don't really want that dude to be right, though, do we?
I'm sorry.
We don't really want that dude to be right, though. I don't.
No. No, he's got to miss once in a while,
Yeah. Well, so Don, obviously we're in the middle of a global crisis, with this COVID virus thing, and it's shut down pretty much all of your income streams. But and you're a multi-talented guy. You're an actor, a director, a musician. Pretty much everything that you could do to make money has been affected by this. How's that feeling over there?
Well, I feel very fortunate, and I thank God and all my lucky stars that I've had a lot of time in this business and was able to, save for the rainy days, so to speak. So, I mean, it's still scary, but it's not like a dire situation, and where I know it is for a lot of people. I mean, I feel, very fortunate. Like I said, I can't imagine, what it's like for a lot of people who are living, paycheck to paycheck, and this is happening. Yet I feel it on some level. Absolutely. I mean, I had a bunch of gigs, so to speak. I was supposed to be doing a play, and then that got canceled. And then I was supposed to do a couple of singing gigs. Those got canceled, and personal appearances. And then another play, and a movie. I was supposed to go to Prague to do a movie in the Czech Republic, which I was really looking forward to. And that's been pushed back, so, but, it's also a time that maybe it's good on some level to slow down and just have a change of perspective on things, and a reassessing of what's important. I mean, there is that, you know, there's a lot of people, I'm sure, talking about that. I've heard that. And I think it's true. I mean, we have to do what we can to survive, but at the same time, there's some, I think there's some good in what's happening. I mean, it's hard to, you know, pull all the cobwebs away to see the good, but I think maybe it was a kind of a warning to our whole global situation of things were getting maybe just too fast, too much, too crazy, and maybe it's a natural way of slowing things down a little bit. There's a lot of pain, unfortunately, in the midst of going through that. But so I don't know. I don't know. I certainly don't have the answers, you know. I'm just reflecting.
Well, you have, you have so many, as Matt said, not only income streams, but also just career threads, which, you know, typically in business, they say, well, you know, this is where you should be. You should diversify. But we've been talking to mostly musicians who they're using the time to create music. You know, you have music, directing, acting, plays, you know.
Yeah.
So when you're that multifaceted, what's kind of your go-to thing to kind of keep yourself sane when you're sheltered in place there?
Oh, cool. That's, well, interestingly enough, I would have said music, and it still is music to some degree, because you know you can do that on your own and in your own isolated place, whether it be listening or working on things. You can do that, and with the technology, you know, I didn't have a band when I was young, so I didn't have the ability to sort of work things out and practice. But you know, when I decided to go back to my roots, which I started out singing before I was acting, and when I decided to go back to that, the technology afforded me the ability, because you know, with simple programs, whether GarageBand and some other programs, I was able to take tracks that I loved, you know, some of the great, because I was into jazz and the jazz standards and big band, and I could take recordings, and there's a program I could pull the vocal out if it was recorded center panned, and then I could practice, you know, and I could sing to these amazing tracks that were some of the greatest arrangers and musicians, you know, of the time, and that afforded me an ability to practice in a way that I never had been able to prior, and I've grown tremendously as a result of me being at my computer hours and hours and hours doing it, because I love it. So you could do that. You could listen to music. You could work. But interestingly enough, because of where we're at, and people are being creative in ways, and we have the technology to do things that we never could before, in terms of what we're doing right now. I'm doing an event this Saturday. Somebody that I know, he's a producer. He has a club in New York City that I performed at, and he's putting together an event to honor some of the nurses and workers that have, you know, been at the front lines. They've contracted the disease, and they're back there after they've recovered. So we're doing a charity event, and I'm going to be. He said, "Will you do something from your house and sing a couple of songs?" You know, who could have thought that you could have done that? But I'm working it out on my own, because I'm not a real tech guy, but I'm working it out where I'm going to have the music. I have tracks. So I'll have my little, you know, Bluetooth speaker, so I could play my tracks and I could sing, and I created video behind me. So I'm going to project that on my big TV. So I'm going to like have this whole video thing going, and I'll be singing to the tracks and doing it live to some Zoom audience or whatever. And so you know, it's great that we have the ability to do something like that. And I was going to say, is it acting? You asked me, is it acting or is it music? Well, coincidentally enough, on the acting side, a producer that I know came to me about 3 weeks ago and said, you know, we got to be doing something. We got to keep our creative chops and be productive. He came up with this idea to do, he's got a brilliant writer, because I've worked with this writer before, a guy named Fred Strappel, and he's put together a team of writers, created a series called Viral Vignettes. And you get two actors, well-known actors, and playing characters in these really great scripts where it could be a father talking to his daughter because, he can't go and visit her, or it could be, a boss and his worker, or it could be two old buddies and they can't get together, old fraternity brothers, whatever it is. And these really great little 10, 15-minute scenes. And we're shooting them, on Zoom, something like this. And I've done two of them now. And one of them just premiered. I did it with Robert Wool, wonderful actor, comedian, from Batman and Hollywood Nights and Arliss. He created Arliss on HBO. So I did one with him. It's on, and they're airing on YouTube. And I did another one. So I'm able, thank God I'm able to do something during this period. And it's not like there's probably no money, but I mean, that would be nice if there was, but just to be doing what we love to do and putting it out there and helping people, have some entertainment, because the ones we've been doing have been very, very funny, and we need some of that right now.
That's awesome.
So, Don, let me ask you, as far as the music goes,
Yeah.
I would like to say I've listened to your orchestra,
The big band.
Yeah, the big band stuff. It's really translates well. You definitely have that Tony Bennett, Sinatra-esque type vibe to you, and you sell it, and it's very like legit. It's not like a hobby thing. You're
you totally. I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much, and I think your observation is acute, because I mean, this is what I grew up with. From the time I was 9 years old, I knew I wanted to sing that kind of music. I started listening to jazz and the great standards and the great, whether it be Sinatra or Bennett, or I was a huge Bobby Darin fan, because Darin could do that music as good as any of them. He could do anything. Very underrated. I saw him at the Copacabana when I was 18 years old. So, but Sammy Davis and then some of the great jazz, like Joe Williams when he sang with the Count Basie band, and I used to listen to Ella Fitzgerald and Dinah Washington and on, and that it's in my blood. And I was doing this in nightclubs when I was 15 years old in the Catskill Mountains, singing the Great American Songbook as part of this review. So that was my first love. So yes, it's not a hobby. This is not something like, I'm going to hop on the bandwagon. I'm an actor and, I'll do the Great American Songbook. I was doing it, 40, 50 years ago. And then I put it aside because that music fell out of favor. In the 70s and 80s, it was looked upon as your grandparents' music or your parents' music. So I was like, I kind of had to put it aside. But then with the resurgence of that, kind of with I guess starting with Harry Connick and Tony Bennett doing the whole acoustic thing, and Diana Krall, who I love, and people like, and Michael Bublé now, of course, doing it, but Natalie Cole, they were all instrumental in that sort of resurgence. And so I said, hey, if I'm ever going to do this music again, this is the time. And I bet I'm not getting younger, So I decided like 6 years ago, I'm putting together, putting together the songs and a musical director and finding the musicians, and let me see what happens. And it's 6 years ago, almost right about now. And it's been a great journey. I've got to play a lot of these cool jazz clubs in New York and LA, and Catalina's Jazz Club out here in LA, and Vitello's and Vibrato's, New York 54 Below, and the Iridium Jazz Club and the Cutting Room. And it's been like this, it's just utter joy to be able to do this music and work with great musicians. I mean, when you get great musicians behind you with these great songs, to me, it's just a high. You get on that wave and just ride it, And because I've known this music my whole life, it just comes so naturally for me at this point,
Since you absorbed this so much, and I know for a lot of singers who are interpreting the Great American Songbook, it's all about phrasing and tone. So what type of things kind of informed your individual approach to those songs?
I think listening to so many of the greats, Sinatra talked about phrasing. He was legendary in terms of his phrasing and tonality. Sammy Davis had an amazing tone to his voice, and people like Joe Williams, and then the alacrity and the agility of people like Ella Fitzgerald and Sarah Vaughan. And I loved a lot of the female jazz singers. I almost liked them more than the male jazz singers for some reason. I don't know why. So I just listening, and then listening to a lot of jazz, instrumental jazz. I find that helpful. Like when I'm going to take on a song, because I've been recording, I like to listen to a lot of different versions of these songs, and then let it sort of percolate, and on some unconscious level, I think, take what you like from, steal from the best, and then let it simmer in there. And then sometimes I'll listen to just the instrumental versions of some of these songs, because these brilliant musicians, when they take their solos and what they do to these, to take the chord structure and then take it on some journey that they go on, it's an education. So it's all of that, all listening to all of those. It's hard to pinpoint. And Darren, like I said, I was 11 years old when I first saw Darren in a movie, and I remembered asking my mom. It was at Radio City Music Hall in New York, and it was a movie called Come September. And he did a song. It wasn't any great song, but not one of that he's really well known for. But he was in the film. But something about Bobby caught me, and I leaned over to my mom and I said, "Who is that guy?" And she told me, And then several months later, I'm in a drugstore that sold albums. Back then, you go into a drugstore and you can look through a bin of LPs, and I see Bobby Darin. This is Darren, and I got that album, and it is. Check out that album. This is Darren. It is every single song. I mean, it's fantastic. Holds up. I would listen to that ad infinitum. Bobby had a tremendous influence on me, probably more than all these other greats, and there's so many to choose from.
You do so much homework when you're listening to all these tracks. I mean, is it when you actually open your mouth to sing when you're working at home or in front of a big band? Is it unconscious at that point, or do you find yourself going, "Oh, at this point, I really want to hold back a couple of beats"? Or
I pretty much leave it up to the spontaneity of the moment, but you need to, that's why I like to listen a lot, and so that it's in there. There might be certain times where I've made a conscious decision about a few things. I think that's happened. I'm sure that I've felt that way, probably in the early stages when I haven't had a chance to, when I'm doing it for the first time or the second time or the first few times. But then after that, then I kind of let go. So there is a little bit of that safety net that you do, when you're not as comfortable with it, where you say, okay, I need to, like you said, hold back here, and I want to wait for this beat, and then come in and come in before, and then what's it when you lag back behind it. But then after I'm familiar and I've done it a few times, then it's like let it go and see where it goes, and I think that's the jazz. The part of me that loves jazz, which is so, when it's at its best, it's so spontaneous.
Here you go. Check it out. This is the record that Don was talking about here.
Which one?
Oh, that.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Always
That's
so
it.
cool looking.
That's it. This is Darren. Just a fantastic collection of songs, arrangements, and Bobby crossing different styles. He does something that's kind of real bluesy, and then something that's more jazz, and then something that's, real kind of almost almost gospely. It ain't necessarily so. Oh wait, that's on the other album. I mixed it. But Bobby was he was a chameleon musically. He could do almost any style and do it great. So yeah, I would tell people check that album out. This and other works of his, but this is Darren. It was my introduction to him, and so it holds a special place in my musical heart.
So let me ask you this, Don. When you go back to the Happy Days era of television, right? And we kind of alluded to this in the beginning, you know, where there's 3 major media channels, and
Right.
and if you get on TV, you've kind of made it, at least for a while. You know, you've
Right.
like you become a household name, even as a musician. Anybody that could get on TV got a certain amount of success, right? But like,
Well, yeah.
but
Well,
now everything is split in so many different pieces. How do you navigate that now that it's all
yeah.
split up?
I don't know. I mean, to somebody, you know, starting out now, I wouldn't really. I might be clueless as to how to advise them in that regard, because you're right. I mean, back then, with only 3, you know, networks, there was no cable, there was no internet. So, you know, we had when we were number 1, we'd have like 50 million people watching us on a Tuesday night.
Right.
You know, now a TV show is a hit if it has, I guess, 5 million people watching.
Mhm.
So vastly different times. And I would know how to advise people. And for me, you know, on one hand, I'm fortunate because people know who I am, but there's the double-edged sword to that. The opposite side of the coin is that they know me, but not for music, you know. So then when I started trying to do the music, you know, there's a certain kind of a resistance to it, or you know, a prejudgment that, oh well, he's an actor and, you know, he's trying to sing or whatever it might be, and people aren't going to come see him to sing. So then it wasn't just because you think, oh, it's a slam dunk for me to get bookings and to get, you know, all these great gigs. You know, in the small jazz club world, it helped me to, you know, to some degree, to at least get in the door. But beyond that, it was almost like it didn't help at all. It maybe hurt. I don't know. So it's been you know, I've been breaking down some of those barriers, but in the meantime, just enjoying it. It was similar to what I had to do when I left Happy Days as an actor, because I had to get away from that preconceived image of who I was. And I was never really like the character that I portrayed. Mm-hmm. To me, that's what acting, the joy of acting is playing different characters, completely different characters. And that's what I love doing. But because it was so successful, it was kind of created a real barrier for me to have to hurdle. So, you know, whether you're a beginner or you have the success, there's the challenges and the unique kind of specific challenges that come with each leg of that, so to speak. But I don't know, you know, how to, like you said, with all the noise out there, with all the different platforms, how do you know, stand out and really make? I think the key is, you know, as we're talking, and it's coming to me as we're talking, is just be, you know, do what you love and pursue it with the pursuit of excellence, of doing the best you can. Because for me, that's a driving force. Is I want it to be as good as it could be, and then I want to get better, and I want to keep getting better. And if you're doing that, and if you love it, and if you're pursuing it, then you can't. If you're thinking about it and strategizing so much, you know, life isn't like that. You can't make it happen in your. I mean, to some degree, you know, they say you see it in your head and all that, but it's going to be in a way that you never expected. Mm-hmm. So you just have to go after the the work itself and the love of the work and the pursuit of the of excellence in what you're doing, and then let everything else kind of fall in where it does.
Well, as an actor, was there any point where, I know you're probably talking about being typecast as Ralph from Happy Days, but when did you feel that, okay, I finally hit my stride where that's gone and I can just be Don Most, the actor? Was there any period or any particular role that kind of did that for you?
I don't know if it was one role. I think it's more like an accumulation or, you know, a combination of roles. And I've been feeling a sense of it in the last 5-6 years is where, for whatever reason, I think the separation, I guess one good thing about getting older is creating time, distance, and space from where I was.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's people are more, I don't know, there's a more openness towards it in the industry. I think the public was always open to it. It was the industry that would play it safe and tend to want to typecast you because it's easy to categorize people and it's safer. But the public, I think, had more open-minded, more of an open mind than the industry gave them credit for. But now even the industry, as I'm getting older, and obviously I'm in a very different age bracket and a different situation, and so one role kind of led to another role and another role, and then people are seeing them in the conglomerate, and it's starting to take off more and more, where I'm getting offers and opportunities to play very interesting roles. There's a movie that's on Amazon Prime right now called MBF, Man's Best Friend, but it's not dogs are a big part of it, but it's not a family film. It's about a Marine in Afghanistan gets wounded, and then his partner, you know, he handles this dog, and his dog is killed, and he comes back to the States, and he's trying to assimilate and adapt, and I won't go into too much what happens, but something horrific happens, and it's a very powerful story. And then he goes on trial, and I play a defense attorney, and I wind up defending him.
Oh, so yeah. I watched the segment where you were presenting your case.
Yeah, I put a scene up. That's right. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a very, you know, I would never have been offered this kind of role 15 years ago. But these producers, they're based in Michigan. They have a great production company. They came to me with it, and I loved the script. So I got to do that, and then I did another film with the same company called Lost Heart, and I play a local pastor in this. It's a very different kind of role. So I love that. And you alluded earlier, Matt, to the project I did with Anson Williams, who played Potsy on Happy Days.
Yep.
Harvest Time, which is a completely different piece than what people would expect if they were thinking Happy Days.
I was shocked. I wouldn't say that I was like, it was just not what I thought it would be, but it's very dramatic. Yeah, you should check it out. I'll put it up there.
It's dramatic, but also there's some very funny stuff, but it's dark humor.
Yeah,
you know, it's dark humor where and it gets pretty dramatic. Yeah, and so I'm very happy that. So in answer to your question, it wasn't really one role. I think it was several. You know, I did a bunch of independent films over the last 5-10 years, and I think they sort of have been building upon each other, and it's starting to open things up in a cool way.
Well, let me ask you this, Don. I was in researching the interview. My friend reminded me, and I remember seeing this. You were actually, you've kind of been put into American culture when the Family Guy features you on a segment,
right?
And they kind of poke fun at you, and they're like, they're like, on this site, the ghost or the spirit of Don Most rises from the mist or something, you know,
of Donny Most,
of Donny Most. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And how was that?
That was a very funny thing for me to do. What happened was, my agent got a call from Seth MacFarlane, saying, we want to do this this bit about Don in it's in a segment of this upcoming episode. We're going to do this. We would prefer if Don would do his own voice, and we would much prefer it. But if he doesn't, just know we're going to do it anyway. So just let him know. Let him know. So my agent sent me the script, and I thought it was hysterical. They were concerned maybe I would take offense at it, and I wouldn't want to do it because I'd be, no, I don't want to have anything to do with it. But I loved it. So I said, yeah, I want to do it. I don't want somebody else to do me. So I went in and did it with Seth, and it took probably half an hour, and he was great. And it was and then when I saw what they did in terms of the music that they put to it and the whole concept of it, it was even funnier. And I get a lot of response about that. People, I get that a lot from younger people. They know that, and it was great. I'm glad I didn't get a little, like a chip on my shoulder about it, because they were making fun of the fact that I changed my name, because I was Donny, because I was like 19, 20 years old when I started Happy Days, and I was Donny up until then, and but then I knew I was what I was facing when I left the show after the 7th season, because I left after my contract was up. They wanted me to renew, but I thought I needed to move on, as Ron Howard did the same year. And I felt, okay, part of helping me, the transition is I have to be looked upon as an adult. So I have to go with Don Most now, and so they had some fun with that. My character comes up from the missing, and there's it's a song that they wrote to my name, Donny Most, Donny Most, this whole thing. And then at the end of this big fanfare, I go, it's Don now. And then my character goes back down into it's really funny. I mean, people could see that on YouTube, but I didn't take offense at it. I thought it was very clever.
Well, that still must be interesting, where you become kind of a cultural icon, that these things, do pop up from time to time. It must be kind of weird to be on one level, you're on the inside because it's you. On another level, you're kind of on the outside because, the culture has kind of taken over your iconography, so to speak.
Yeah.
That must be kind of, that's a strange feeling that most of us don't get to deal with.
Yeah. And I don't know that I ever, for years, I don't think I ever, it's hard to comprehend, I mean, it almost seems like it's, you're in the Twilight Zone, and it's not real. It's more I'd say in the last 10, 15 years that I've come to embrace it, appreciate it, understand it a little more, because, when we were doing the show, we were kind of isolated on a soundstage at Paramount Studios, and we were getting there early, doing the show, and going home, having dinner, and then going to sleep and getting up early and doing the same thing, and not really how do you fathom that it's going out to 30, 40, 50 million people? I mean, it's hard to grasp. And then you'd go out in public and start to see the reflection of that, because of the reaction that you'd get from people. But it was almost like, well, they're looking at somebody else, not me. I mean, it was just very hard to. So you're right. Probably a lot of people don't get to experience that, and in some ways, I didn't really understand it, and I have a better understanding of it now. It's they should teach when you go to acting class, they should have a course just in case you get famous, like how to deal with. But it probably should be a psychologist giving that class, because it's abnormal. It's an abnormal kind of situation.
It's weird because, like, I remember growing up, I'm 49 right now. So I was a teenager in the late 80s. So Happy Days was in syndication
right
when I was a kid, but it was reruns. It wasn't even like, you weren't as famous then as you were when it was live, right?
Right.
And I just remember I mean, I was kind of excited about this interview. It's like part of my childhood because I watched Happy Days, and Ralph Malph was, one of my, one of the characters in the story of my life, and it's like, I mean, it's really weird when I'm still I was like right at the beginning of cable television. So like in the 80s. And so like before then, I still remember the 3 networks and PBS, and so it just kind of says something to the power of marketing, how that if you can figure out a way to get in front of that many eyeballs, no one will forget you. It's just a really powerful tool. And I guess the question is, how do you do that now? It seems harder.
I think it definitely is harder now. I mean, it was always hard because, it's always such a competitive business and everybody wanted to do it. And it was tough to break in and all that. But I definitely think it's harder now because of everything that you've mentioned. And, all the noise that's out there, and then so even more competition. But like I said, I if you get too analytical about that, maybe, I don't know, maybe there's some life coaches out there that could give people advice in that regard. But for me, I think if it's coming from the heart and you are driven to do it, and you can't think of doing anything else, and you have such a love of it and a passion for it, and have found other people in your, like-minded people and people that you'll enjoy working with, then you'll find a way, and even if it's not like, well, not everybody's going to become, so well known and so famous, but as long as you could have, a fulfilling career doing it, and that could take all different forms and shapes. And it doesn't mean everyone has to be a superstar. If you're doing what you love and doing great work, and people are enjoying it, and you could survive and make a decent living, that's a hugely successful thing. And maybe you'd be better off than being somebody really famous, because there's a whole lot of baggage and a whole lot of things that go along with that. And you might not be as happy. So if you could do it, and so I wouldn't be so fixated on I have to become, that famous. If you could be doing, like I said, what you love to do, and make a living, and do work that you're proud of, and that you think it's going to have some impact on people and have a legacy in some way, you don't have to be the big superstar. And I think you have a great life and a happy life. So many people, very, very happy, and they never become famous, So I wouldn't get too hooked up on that. I mean, you might say it's easy for me to say because I hit that to some degree, but I'm giving you some of my insight after having gone through all that, and I believe what I'm saying.
Well, it's obvious that, you obviously love what you did. So you're kind of a career criminal, you do this no matter what. And, I'm going to be a cranky old man and disagree with Matt for a little bit. Because, there were only 3 channels, but not every TV show made it. A lot didn't make it through the 13
That's
weeks.
true.
So
That's true.
I think
that was a hit TV show for sure.
I think that the work that you as a team of actors put in, with the writers, put in, the directors, the cinematographers, perhaps even the catering people, there was something that went on that made Happy Days a special thing for so many people. And not every show, not every actor, had that. And it's like we're talking about music today, it's like you can market yourself through numerous streams that we have available to us now with the internet, with the web, but you got to be a Don Most or an Eric Clapton or a Slash or whatever. There's got to be that something vibey that people go, I can't live without seeing this person.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm sort of at a loss, how to even respond on that level. I don't know, because to me, I was always just pursuing it because it was like I had to, you know, it was like I just had to. And so when people ask me, I get that question, what advice do you give people who are starting out and whatnot? And that's what I used to say, and I still feel it, is that unless you feel like this is something you have to do and you just can't think of doing anything else, then I would discourage people from pursuing a career, you know, in music and acting, because it's so difficult and it's so sometimes unfair and cruel. But if you have that where this is all that you have to do it, you just have to do it, then okay. But I would usually discourage people because I could see how there's so many talented, a lot of really talented people, but you know, for whatever reason, it doesn't click, and it's cruel. It's not always about that. You know, it's there's too many other variables, and it could be very unfair. So, if there is that love of what you want doing, and you feel like that you just have to do it, then go for it. You know, that's about all I could say in that area.
On the music side, are you working on a new record now? I don't know if Matt mentioned that or not, but
yeah,
what's going on there?
Yeah, the CD that's out now is called D Most, Mostly Swinging, and it's fabulous big band arrangements and musicians, LA jazz studio guys, and Willie Murillo was a fantastic trumpet player and arranger of that kind of music, and he produced it, and I'm very proud of that CD. But I'm doing now one with a producer in Nashville, a guy named Tony Mantor, and we're doing. It's going to be different. We're going to do some jazz standards, but with a much more more of a contemporary feel, not that big band approach, which I love. But this is I love so many different kinds of music. So this is some of the jazz standards with a really nice contemporary feel with these great players out of Nashville. And then we're also combining in it, that kind of fits some 70s rock, pop, R&B kind of stuff. So it's really interesting. I'm really enjoying the process because the approach that they have in Nashville to recording something was very different than what I did in LA for the big band project, because big band typically the arrangements are all written out. I mean, I talked to Willie, we talked about structure, we talked about the approach and feel of the song, but then he would write these arrangements because you have 17 musicians that have to be playing together. There might be some room for solos here and there, but for the most part, it's got to be masterfully written out, and Willie did that. But so it's planned out in that way, and then they record, and then I come in and do my vocals. But what we're doing in Nashville is different, where they're just laying out sort of an arrangement loosely, with the chords structure, I guess, and an approach, but it's pretty loose. And then the producer, Tony's leaving it a lot up to the musicians to contribute their thing to it. And then I'm there doing a scratch vocal that while they're laying it down. So they're picking up on what I'm doing, and it's a little more organic, and collaborative. So I'm enjoying that process a lot. And then I go back in and then work with Tony and really work on those vocals. And it's coming out great. It's I have a sampler I posted on Facebook of some of the songs that we've finished, because we haven't been able to finish with everything that's going on right now. I was supposed to go back there in early April to finish, but hopefully one of these days we will. But we finished about 6 or 7 songs, and so I put together a little sample of different 20, 30 seconds of some of the different songs, and it's up there, so you could check it out. Cool. I posted on Facebook. It shouldn't be too hard to find.
Well, we're getting to the top of the hour here. I know Don had some things to do today, and I want to be respectful of his time. But thank you so much, Don, for being on the show.
I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed talking to both of you very much.
Yeah, well, we just so you know, we do have on Sundays at least during the COVID crisis, we have a meetup in Zoom for all the show guests. So You get to meet a lot of other musicians. We had about 10 or 15 people last week, and it seems to be growing. And a lot of them are working in the industry and stuff. So you're welcome.
Cool.
I'll send you an invite to that.
And when is that?
Sundays at 1 p.m.
Yeah, send me an invite. That'd be.
Okay.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm sure a lot of people would love to meet you that grew up watching Happy Days, you know. And also at 2 p.m. we let everyone in Kingdom of Rock know we do have a community meetup for people that watch the show. If you just want to meet up in Zoom, we send a link in the Kingdom of Rock Backstage Pass Facebook group. And if you're a member of that, you can go to the link and get in the room, and we just kind of hang out and you can talk about music or, you know, just a time to kind of like be around people if you're stuck in your house, you know. So and guests are welcome to go to that as well, but you know, it's 2 different meetings. But that's from 2 to 4 p.m. So round the table really quick. Mike, you got anything to close with?
Well, I'm old enough to not have watched Happy Days and reruns. I was there. There's that, but
the first run. You were there for the first run.
I'm a first run kid. But thanks, Don, for sharing. You know, it's great, and I would have loved to ask you more at some point about, you know, your ideas on arrangement and stuff like that, because that's almost a lost art these days. You know, where but
I was such a stickler about arrangements. I mean, I understood very early how important they were for that kind of music, and I remembered I would be looking to see who did this arrangement, you know, when I was pretty young, 12 or 13, who did that arrangement? And I was always into the, you know, when I would get turned on by a great arrangement, and of course the vocal, but the arrangement, I saw how important it was. So when I heard Willie Murillo, when I met Willie, and then he played me a couple of songs from some tracks on CDs that he had arranged, I was like, you arranged that? And then I knew he was my guy for that, you know. And so when you check out Mostly Swinging, you'll hear his arrangements are brilliant. So I'll come back. I'd love to come back, and we could talk about arrangements in terms of the questions or just the back and forth on that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, that sounds great. All right. Well, Don, do you have any closing words for the Kingdom of Rock?
Well, just thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed, you know, shooting the breeze with you guys and just getting into all these kind of good subjects, really good subjects. And hope everybody stays safe and wish everybody well. And if they're looking for something to watch, you know, go to YouTube and check out Harvest Time with Anson and me. You could do a search for Harvest Time. And then the other one called Viral Vignettes. Well, I did one called Old Buddies with Robert Wool.
Yeah, I'll share those with the community on the page.
Yeah, and MBF, the film I was telling you about.
Okay, great.
All right.
Well,
all right.
Thanks everyone, and thanks so much, Don. Have a good one.
Stay well.
Rock out.
Okay.